Well, I think if you're a startup in the early days, nobody knows you, perhaps you're looking for funding, you need exposure. And I think a lot of what these programs are doing is providing that exposure. Maybe it's a free press release from some big company that started an accelerator. That's probably better than you sitting in your small little office as a startup and nobody knows you. So I think a lot of startups look at it as a way to get that exposure for the purposes of either A, selling their products, or B, looking for investment. The actual value provided by many of these accelerators I don't think is really there. We're in 2019 now, there's lots of these different accelerators popping up, but I think there's only a few which really provide the real value. And what is the real value? It's being able to help the startup sell more of their product, ultimately. You've got to be able to be good at that to be a successful business. So some accelerators do focus on that, whereas other accelerators I think are mainly just looking for a press release. So we would err on the side of caution when looking at the different accelerators. In Hong Kong, I still think it's early stage funding. That is certainly one problem. Another problem is talent as well, technical talent. So Hong Kong doesn't really have too much in the way of technical talent here. It's a financial hub, that's for sure, but that doesn't mean that it's a technology hub as well. A lot of the technology sort of stuff happens across the border in Shenzhen. Much larger sort of market, much more sort of people engaged in that space. But in Hong Kong, not so much. And especially one of the things we've seen here is the programming languages that people have access to maybe from university. It is not what the startup scene is using at the moment, and that is a challenge. So the universities are teaching programming languages that are not relevant in 2019, which is a big problem. The other one, early stage funding. There are a few sort of venture capital firms that are now making Hong Kong their home, and they're investing in local companies, but the deal flow through is not that high. I mean, if you ask them, it's like, how many deals did you do in the last 12 months? Usually the answer is 1 or 2, which is really sort of, it's not quite there yet compared with competitors, say in the US or Singapore or elsewhere. So I still think it's a problem for startups here to get that early stage funding, but if they can and they can survive, then you know that they have a quality product. I think Hong Kong is a great place to do the business side of your company. Probably the best in Asia to do that. I mean, Hong Kong as a global city, it has just a lot of velocity of people coming through here. You're able to meet people, like for example, if I was back in Australia and I started my company, I would not be able to go to meetups and meet directors of banks, or be able to meet people that are interesting in the industry that might be able to assist my company move forward. That Hong Kong is a great connector for businesses. So I think as a location to base the business HQ, to do the sales, to do the business development, Hong Kong, fantastic place. In terms of sort of technical side of doing fintech, a lot of people are trying to set themselves up as a fintech hub, but what does that really mean at the end of the day? It could mean a couple of things. It could mean that the regulation is easy. Hong Kong already does that. Hong Kong has very easy regulation for cryptocurrencies because there pretty much is none. So you can just get started and go. Whereas in the US, you have to put $1 million down in every single state. So there's that aspect to it, the regulatory side. I think the talent acquisition is another one which is challenging in Hong Kong, which is why I would say focus on the business side of things. But I think a fintech hub has to keep a balance of both of them. So, but I don't think anyone's really emerged yet in Asia, but Hong Kong's certainly there for the business side of things. So I would say stay in Hong Kong for the business, and if there's any sort of other areas that you want to branch into, maybe look at other places around the world which might be better on the technical side or something like that. I think first thing is make sure that you have a good corporate structure to begin with. Have a company secretary which is going to be able to do things quickly. We found that often when we're negotiating with investors, it would take a long time to get just sort of administrative things done. So that is one thing, is certainly do that. Another thing is definitely try to reach out to as many people as possible here. There already is a lot of people who have trod this path already. They'll be able to provide valuable advice. I would say don't try and focus everything in Hong Kong. Try and play to the strengths. If Hong Kong is good at one thing, absolutely, do that one thing well in Hong Kong. But if it's not good in another area, then maybe look at having a distributed team, and that's becoming easier and easier these days to do. So I would say that certainly keep your eyes open. Prove that you have a valuable product. Try and distribute the team as much as possible, and that might make your startup journey a lot easier.